Maybe I should have written a script, but it's a little late for that now, so we're winging it. So when I first watched To Be Hero X episode 1, I thought that it was mid. I thought it was pretty average. I got bored about halfway through, but I pushed through because I had only heard good things about it. The end of episode 1 has a plot twist on it, but it's not as gripping as I wished that it was, especially with Lee Hall-young's tendencies to kill innocent women in shows. By shows, I mean like singularly. I haven't watched anything else that he's done. So I was like, it's a thing, you know? But then I watched episode 2, and episode 2 is pretty freaking good. So for those of you who are unaware, To Be Hero X is a show that started coming out about 6 weeks ago as of the time of filming this, and there are 6 episodes currently out. In To Be Hero X, the world has superheroes, and these superheroes gain their powers based off of the trust that people have in them. And they have like a trust value number written on their wrist, basically. And it can be shown in many different ways, but specifically, what people believe of you is what you are. So, for example, Firm Man in episode 3, because he is saving this little girl from a fire, and she trusts that he will, keep her safe and alive, he is able to keep her safe and alive. That's a very simplistic way of putting that, and I will go more in depth about Firm Man later, and this entire power system, so just bear with me. The world building, the power system specifically, is insanely cool and is used insanely well throughout the 6 currently out episodes. But what I find even better about it is the characters that we have been introduced to. To Be Hero X is an anthology, so every few episodes we get a new main character. The first 4 episodes are Lin Liang, the next 3 are Yang Chong, and then the next 2 are going to be the next character, and so on and so forth. I think most of the characters are ending up having 2 episodes for themselves, and I'm pretty sure season 1 is set to have 24 episodes in total. So, as someone who's not really a fan of anthologies, I'm shocked by how much this has gripped me, and how much they can do with this world and this world building. And I'm shocked, even more so, that I am so attached to these characters that I only get for a few episodes. Starting off by talking about my absolute favorite character right now, Nice. And I would like to specify that I am not talking about Lin Liang throughout this section. I will be talking about the original Nice, the character that we see kill himself within a few minutes of the first episode, and then only ever get again through flashbacks of him and Rek in episode 2. For one, I would like to start off by addressing the idea of Nice having OCD. I, as someone who has OCD, actually really like that. I know that a lot of people call it stereotypical and don't like the fact that it's called OCD, despite it just being perfectionism. However, the way in which you can imagine that it is actually really debilitating for him, that it actually interferes with his day-to-day life in ways that are, like, very, like, mentally painful, if not physically painful, I feel like I can understand that. My OCD personally is not based in perfectionism, though there is some amount of me needing things done in particular ways, or else I kind of lose it, or I need to, like, rearrange everything. But mostly mine shows through different ways. Yet I still understand that, perfectionism is something that a lot of people with OCD deal with, and, it's really the emotional and mental impact that it has on you as a person that I think is what makes it so, And I think that Nice is good representation, even if it is a little stereotypical, since the OCD in particular is the perfectionism stereotype of OCD. So I understand people who don't like that, and I understand people who don't want to call it OCD, but I personally take comfort in it. I think that the most interesting thing about Nice as a character so far is his suicide. And that is because of the way in which he chooses to commit suicide and what he does right before he commits. So when Lin Liang is, on that roof looking down, and Nice runs past him. Nice shoots him finger guns before falling to his death. And I find this interesting for, those two reasons. He does finger guns. That's his, iconic signature thing, is finger guns. Why is it that he's keeping up his superhero appearance even as he is about to plummet to his death? I think that that's something really interesting, especially when you couple it with the fact that Rek asks Lin Leung, why haven't you messaged me back in a month? Which was the amount of time that Lin Leung had been Nice. So we can assume that Nice has been regularly talking to Rek even as he's about to kill himself, We know that, he is regularly messaging. He's keeping up with him, and Rek seemed surprised when finding out the news about Nice. So, I assume that, he was keeping up appearances to everyone, really, at that time. But even in the moment of his death, he still chooses to do the thing that defines him as a hero to the outside people. And then he chooses to fall, which is interesting because one of his powers is flight. So it's an interesting flip, or parallel, I guess. I don't know, just something to think about. I'm not fully sure what that means for Nice as a character, but I know that it's interesting and I want to know more about him and why he chose to fall to his death as opposed to literally anything else. When talking about Nice, it's also important to talk about Nice's relationships. First, his with Yue, which I want to talk more about in her part because we see more of her perspective on it than we do his, because we don't see any of his perspective on it. We do see actual real flashbacks of him and Rek, though. We actually actively see that. And in his relationship with Rek, people are kind of debating whether or not he had feelings for Rek in return. I think everyone mutually accepts that Rek had more than friends feelings about Nice. I think that Nice had feelings for Rek back. And specifically, this is because of the scene where he starts the beer fight. Especially because that is presented in the exact same episode where Yue was just talking about how Nice would never throw food. So that's just an interesting thing. If she's so sure that Nice would never throw food after having lived with him for so long, and Nice is able to casually throw beer on Rek. Interesting. I know what you are. Though I also wonder how much it hurt him. I wonder how far into his job that was. Because either he suffered through doing that because being with Rek and being able to laugh and stop being perfect around Rek was enough, or if it was because enough worth it. I don't know. I forgot how I phrased that start of that sentence. Or if it was early in the career and he didn't have such painful perfectionism yet. But either way, that scene makes it clear that he feels particularly close to Rek. Plus, some people have noticed that he starts unbuttoning Rek's shirt and that, so whatever you guys want to, I'm just saying. But also with this, China's still kind of homophobic, and, that's not perfect of him. However, a lot of things that I've seen multiple people say, and no hate to anyone who has this theory, people theorize that he was falling out of love with Rek because being gay isn't perfect, or being with your enemy, someone who is, staged to fight against you. But they don't know that it's staged. That's not perfect. So people were like, oh, maybe he fell out of love with Rek because people didn't think that he was. And in which that'd be an interesting use of the power system, for sure. I definitely agree with that. However, considering the fact that people thought that Nice and Yue were dating didn't make them fall in love. Considering that, I don't like that theory. I think that it has good angst potential, but it's not angst potential that I care to delve into. Plus, I hate the idea that you can literally turn straight. Right? But whatever. So you can't talk about Nice without talking about Lin Liang, his replacement, as we'll call it. So Lin Liang is a character that is meant to represent the people. You know, he's a guy with big dreams, and he's a little shy and a little awkward, and he's literally just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And somehow he becomes a superhero because of it. And we watch him, you know, force himself to fit into some kind of mold that he is absolutely not. But he is fitting into because people believe that that's him, and therefore he is. So, you know, but then we also see him try to break out of that multiple times. He tells almost every single hero that he comes in contact with, if I'm not mistaken, that he is not nice. First with Yue Xiang, for one, she figures it out because he's so different from Nice. And but they also, you know, are able to talk, and he's able to tell her his real name, and they have a real heart-to-heart about it. And then with Rek, you know, Rek also figured it out on his own, but still Lin Liang admitted to him the truth. And then in episode 3 with Firm Man, he simply said it. He just told Firm Man, and Firm Man was like, hey, just be yourself, and walked away. And then that all leads up to him being able to actually be himself in episode 4 and break free from, you know, pretending to be nice. This is super meant to be representative of society and societal pressures on people. And I think that in that sense, Lin Liang's character arc is like a very nice holistic 4-episode thing. I don't know that I could watch more of his plotline unless it were focused on what happens at the end of episode 4. But we're going to talk more about the end of episode 4 later during Yue Xiang's part. The first time we see Lin Liang, he is a dreamer. He is absolutely set on the idea that anyone can be a hero, anyone can do anything they set their mind to type thing. You know, and specifically anyone can be a hero in this world because it's fully based on how many people trust you and like you. The thing that I think is most compelling about Lin Liang, quite frankly, other than the fact that it is a very great lesson to teach children, or just people in general, because I don't know that even adults have really let that lesson sink in, but the thing that I find most compelling about him is that he does what he does for love. At least in episode 4. He goes through the first 3 episodes kind of just doing things because this is his chance. He has been like this worthless little thing for so many years, you know, absolutely abused by his boss. And, you know, as far as we're aware, no friends or family. No one cared when he died. And so he does everything he does because he wants to be someone that people care about. I think I phrased that right. He wants to be someone that people care about. And this is his only chance to. Except he's not the person that the people care about. Still, he goes through with it. And, you know, he enjoys it when he, you know, gets to be with Yue Xiang and is able to, you know, fight back against his abusive boss that the Enlighter brought in. You know, Lin Liang doesn't mind that he is pretending to be someone else because he has the things that he wants. But then, when he's talking with Yue Xiang in episode 2, that fantasy falls apart pretty quickly. And then, over the month that they spend together, you know, he is more himself, despite literally obtaining the traits of another person due to the power system. The end of episode 2 has Yue Xiang and Lin Liang having a heart-to-heart about Yue Xiang leaving. And she asks him what he wants, and he doesn't know. And because what it is that he does enjoy having people care about him. And he finally has that for the first time in his life. But at what cost? And so in episode 3, when he sees Firm Man and he sees the pains and agonies and responsibilities that come with being a hero, he doesn't want it. He realizes that he doesn't want to keep pretending, really. And we see that specifically in the fact that he decides to reveal who he is to Firm Man, a guy that he's known for like less than a day, really. And Firm Man doesn't care. Just be yourself, as he's leaving. And then in episode 4, he's forced to stop pretending to be nice. And this is like just the best outcome for him. Then Lighter was like so trying to be like this big scary villain or whatever, except he wasn't. I'm actually gonna have a whole section where I talk about him too, though it's gonna be rather short. But it's really the best scenario for Lin Leung, because Lin Leung both gets to be himself and gain the hearts of the masses while saving the love of his life. And throughout episode 4, that's what's really, makes me love Lin Leung, is how far he goes for someone that he knows for a month. Yeah, she's been like an idol to him for like most of his life, but he spent a month with the real her. He saw her for who she was and understood her truly and just wanted to help her and wanted to make sure that she was okay. And, episode 2's disillusionment is a positive thing, both in episode 2 when they are actually able to bond and he, sees that she is an actual person and not just this goddess, as he says in episode 1. But in episode 4, he still fights for that. And I don't know, it's just really sweet. And so, talking about Yuretsyung, I adore episode 2. And that's how we're going to put that. I think that Yuretsyung in episode 2 is absolutely amazing. I think that her entire storyline, her entire arc is so perfectly fit into this one episode. I think that it's a great way to represent women in media and how they, just become attachments to another person, and the way that resentment grows from that. Yuretsyung met Nice when Nice saved her life one day. I feel as though we can assume that they were friends for a while because the media started liking the idea of them together. I highly doubt that she was the only person that Nice ever saved. So I feel like this had to have started somewhere and gained so much popularity that they had to fake date somewhere. So I assume that they were friends at one point in time, but they started resenting each other. And Yuretsyung's part of this is because she, as a woman, will only ever be seen as an accessory to a man. She had her own life, her own dreams, her own aspirations. And the second that she met Nice, all of those had to be torn away from her. Now her teleportation gun that was used to travel to any place that she wanted to go for herself and her own enjoyment is suddenly made to teleport her next to Nice, because that's where she needs to be at all times, because she's his accessory. And she hates him for it. She absolutely resents him for it. It's not that Nice ever did anything particularly to her, but it's that the circumstances made her hate him. And I can imagine that circumstances made him hate her too, due to his probable relationship with Rek. Among other things, I'm sure. I really adore that Lin Leung was able to find a way to let her live her authentic life again. And for that episode ending with, not ending, but like that moment in the episode where he's talking to the masses about her death, and he tells them that they should all wish for her to be able to go wherever she wants to go. That meant so much. And that was such a gorgeous moment. And Yuretsyung being able to go wherever she wanted to go, but still leaving behind her teleportation gun, was a very powerful move on her part. She, throughout the entire episode, is a very powerful woman. She is very, loud and talkative, and she takes up space, and she doesn't care about it. She's messy, and she doesn't care about it. She is who she is unapologetically. And, part of her messiness is simply wanting to irritate Nice or Linleong, but she is also just that kind of person, and she, doesn't care that it bothers people that she doesn't care about. Plus, she is shown to have real deep conversations, and she's able to voice the things that she feels very well, and she's able to form connections with people still. And I don't know, she's just a very great character. And then there's the end of episode 4. I hated the end of episode 4 with a genuine, real passion, and I still really do. I think that it was unnecessary and upsetting. I think that it was cheap shock value, at least, which isn't, I guess, fair, because we did get, introduced to the idea that she was going to die, not only in episode 1, but also in episode 2 with her faking her death. But no, in episode 4, it actually happens. And I think that the situations in which that happens are also stupid. At the end of episode 4, we see her on an island by herself. And that's because she wished her teleportation gun to take her somewhere that no one knows her. And that was a deserted island. And she had been there for who knows how long, and was sick and tired and hated every second of it. And then Linleong comes out as Linleong and saves her. And, I don't mind women being saved in media. That's fine. But the fact that her entire plot in episode 2 was the fact that she wanted to be seen as separate from any man, and then she's able to go travel by herself only for a man to save her from this place that she traveled to, that she chose to travel to on her own independently, upset me a little bit. Maybe I'm too woke. Who knows? But, so he saves her, and she's so excited to be saved, which, I love her relationship with Linleong, and I wish that they were able to actually, have more moments together. Even though I think episode 2 was a perfect goodbye for them, and I think that it would be a great way to show two people who really care for each other, but still just can't be together, I thought that it was beautifully written and well done. And even if they had met again and decided to live together and be together, I would have been very happy and supportive. However, it's this fact that she was saved by him, I guess, that really upset me. And then she gets shot. By who? We don't really know. The guy kind of looks like Isol. That's what we got. So it might have been Isol, it might have been the new Isol. We aren't really sure, but we don't even know why she died. I think that if they make a real, true, tried and good reason for why she had to die at the end of episode 4, then sure, I guess. But still, just the entire end of that episode was very upsetting to me as someone who was very interested in Yuetsing as a character and her plotline. It felt like it just undid all of that. Very briefly, I want to talk about a few characters that I think play into this. For one, I want to talk about Miss J, since we're talking about Yuetsing and Nice's relationship. Miss J is obviously a representation of corporations. She is a representation of greed. Maybe not her specifically, but the entire corporation that, focuses on exploiting people. Yeah. The entire company takes people who want to help people. Which, by the way, we never find out Nice's motivations for becoming a hero, which is something I find interesting. I wonder if it was because he wanted to help people, or if it was because he wanted... I can't really tell. Because Rek wanted to be a villain to complement Nice's dream of being a hero. I wonder why Nice wanted to be a hero. Was it to help people? Was it because he, wanted people to like him? I think that's a really interesting thing to keep delving into. But Miss J and the entire company takes younger adults or even teenagers and exploits them and, knowing that the repercussions that can come with getting powers, she still decides to do that. And it even drove Nice to taking his own life. And she kind of expected the same thing to happen to Lin Leung. But she didn't care. She didn't care about that. I think that that's a great representation of a lot of companies in today's Asian society. So, just want to throw that out there. I also don't have a lot to say about Rek as a singular character. I wish that we got more of him, but as of right now, he mostly serves as a form of grief. His entire character is just grieving over Nice. And I want to see more of who he is on his own. Some people said that the fall in episode 2 led to his death. I don't know if that's canon or not. I didn't think it was, but if the masses think so, then I guess who am I to say? I just didn't get that, but I might have missed it. It's been a long time since I watched episode 2 also, But yeah, he is just well shown grief. He he does attack Lin Leung, and he's like, why haven't you been answering my messages? If I can't have you, no one can, But it's pretty quick that he's like, you're an imposter. You aren't him. Tell me what happened to the real him. And then once Lin Leung tells him, he is so grief-stricken that he can't even, continue this fake fight. And in Lin Leung's last punch, he tells him that the punch definitely wasn't Nice's. And I don't know, just watching him that episode, oh my gosh. And his voice actor did phenomenal. I haven't watched the English for it yet, but the Chinese voice actor did so well. And it was just wonderful. But I wish that we got more of him as a person outside of his relationship with Nice. I'm going to take the time right now to talk about Firm Man. I was going to talk about Yang Cheng and relate him to Firm Man. However, I think that I can do that in a second part that I make to this because this video is already way too long. So, Firm Man, when talking about him, I don't have too much to say actually, because what it is he is, when we're introduced to the real terrifying part of becoming famous in this world. Because he, for one, can't bend his legs. And then when we look at Wolf Girl, and the drawing that she made of him when she was, in high school, and it was of him on one knee, and everyone super harassed her for that for no reason. And, because the thing is, that kind of stuff does actually really impact a hero and their abilities. Like, every single thing that a person does impacts that hero. And the point was of that she wanted him to be able to, bend his legs, literally. She wanted him to be able to rest and cry and have emotions and be human like the rest of them. But Firm Man can't because he's a hero. And I think that there's something really interesting about that, especially with the fact that he didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to protect a child. And that skyrocketed into something that blew super out of proportion. And yes, he did enjoy being a hero, but what he really enjoyed was helping people. Not any of the excess stuff that came with that. And I think that he is 10 out of 10 person, 10 out of 10 character, and absolutely something that I think that a lot of people should strive to be like. But overall, I don't have much more to say about him other than in relation to Yang Cheng, which will be in a part 2. I'm so sorry, gang. Lastly, I want to talk about the Enlighter. I will have a few references to him in episode 6. However, we are mostly focusing on what we see of him in episodes 1 and 4. The Enlighter has a need for truth. That's his whole thing, is that he brings truth to situations. And that's why he's so focused on revealing who Lin Liang is. Lin Liang, to the masses. And for one, I partially wonder, how does he know so instinctively? Is that part of his own powers? He is ranked the 250th hero. So I wonder if part of his ability is intuition. But we don't know that. But the thing is, as it goes, he loses his credibility in episode 1 because Lin Liang doesn't break the mold that they have molded for him of him being nice. And so the Enlighter's credibility plummets, and he kind of goes crazy over that. And instead he becomes a villain and uses fear to, allow him to do what he does in episode 4. The thing is, I do believe at his core that what he wants is the truth. I feel as though he would be a really interesting character to explore the origins of his becoming a hero, and I really hope that he continues to be a reoccurring character throughout all of the anthology episodes. But as well as the truth, he wants people to believe him. And the truth means nothing if people don't believe it. The truth is what people think it is, specifically in this world. Because really, with Lin Liang pretending to be nice, where does Lin Liang end and nice start? Because the more that he pretends to be nice, the more he becomes nice, literally in this world. The more that you pretend, the more that you become. And so that's the Enlighter's frustration with this world, is that he says the truth and then people don't believe him because they have their own ideas of what the truth is, and then that's what the truth becomes. And he can't accept that. Which honestly is really valid of him because, oh my god, what a confusing world to live in. I also deeply understand his need for that kind of, I don't want to say attention, but like affirmation, I guess. And the way in which he just needs people to believe him. That's like one of my pet peeves, is when people don't listen to what I'm saying or take anything that I'm saying into account. So I don't know, the Enlighter and his struggles are just so very real, especially because we're introduced to him and he's immediately a villain because, he's meant to be opposite to Lin Liang and try to expose him. But in episode 6, we see that he really just wants the truth. We see that he does helpful things for people who deserve that kind of help. And it's not even about who deserves what. It's about what is the objective reality of it all. Objectively, Yang Chong didn't hire these guys to kidnap a child. Objectively, Lin Liang is pretending to be nice, at least in episode 1. He is just a seeker of the truth. And that's something I can't fault him for, if we're being so honest. I think that the Enlighter is a very interesting character, and I can't wait to see more of him. Sometime next week, I will film and edit a video talking about Yang Chong, Xia Qiang, and Chong Chao, and Yi-Sol, the original. If any other characters pop up in the last episode of their part, then I will also be talking about them and doing a deep dive on that. But that will be it for today. In conclusion, To Be Hero X is fucking amazing. And if you watched this entire spoilery video without having seen the show, I recommend you go watch the show right now because it is a lot better and more complex than I can describe in 40 minutes, which is how long I've been filming. I'll probably cut it down to like 10. But yeah, I don't know. Go watch To Be Hero X. And like my video and subscribe and stuff. But also just go watch To Be Hero X. Go support Lee Ha-leung, who is an absolutely beautiful director, storyteller, whatever. And I don't know. I'll see you guys whenever I decide to post again.